Hey everyone, I'm Christy. I'm part of the Lifebridge Kids Ministry team. While you're waiting for service to start, head over to our Lifebridge Kids group on Facebook. It's a great place to connect, and each week we'll be posting fun things for you to do and share. See you there. Hey everyone, I'm Christy. I'm part of the Lifebridge Kids Ministry team. While you're waiting for service to start, head over to our Lifebridge Kids group on Facebook. It's a great place to connect, and each week we'll be posting fun things for you to do and share. See you there. everyone, I'm Christy. I'm part of the Lifebridge Kids Ministry team. While you're waiting for service to start, head over to our Lifebridge Kids group on Facebook. It's a great place to connect, and each week we'll be posting fun things for you to do and share. See you there.
Hey Lifebridge, thanks for tuning in today. My name is Hannah and I'm one of the pastors here. If you're new and want to get connected, you can text the word CONNECT to the number on the screen below. Last week, you guys showed up in a really big way. Mountain State Children's Home is a place in Longmont that serves families and kids who are in crisis, and they were running low on supplies. And so you guys as a church stocked their supplies. On their front porch, you put food, you put donations, and you put much needed supplies for them. So thank you. Each week, we are updating our serving opportunities as they come in, so be sure to follow us on our social media pages to get the latest. You can also check out lbcc.org/serve for ongoing opportunities. Another way to serve is by giving. This is a way that we can live generously and serve our community and those around us. So you can give online today at lbcc.org/give. Thank you guys for tuning in. Let's get started in worship.
We bring our praise, you bring revival. We lift our hands, you lift our eyes up. Where your love is found, there will be no fear. God, your kingdom come, your will be done here. On earth as in heaven, Spirit of God, pour out. Our hearts are wide open. Jesus, we need you now. Come, have your way in this place. Break our walls down. Spirit of God, pour out. On earth as in heaven. Jesus, we need you now. We bring our shame, you bring redemption. You turn our chains into our freedom. Where your love is found, there will be no fear. God, your kingdom come, your will be done here. On earth as in heaven, Spirit of God, pour out. Our hearts are wide open. Jesus, we need you now. Come, have your way in this place. Break our walls down. Spirit of God, pour out. On earth as in heaven. Jesus, we need you now. Oh, we need you. We need you. Your presence. In your presence there is peace. In your presence we are free. There's no better place to be. There's no better place to be. In your presence there is truth. In your presence mountains move. We forever run to you. We forever run to you. On earth as in heaven. Spirit of God, pour out. Our hearts are wide open. Jesus, we need you now. Come, have your way in this place. Break our walls down. Spirit of God, pour out. On earth as in heaven. Jesus, we need you now. We need you. We need you.
In Jesus' presence, we are free. And right now, it feels really freeing to be here in a restaurant, even though it's only open for carryout, after being just cooped up for the last couple weeks. And so I'm here with Anita, who owns Cyclops, and we are going to talk with her today about what it's been like to run a small business and a restaurant during these times, and how she's also been serving those on the front lines. So Anita, talk about where you feel and why you feel so convicted to stay open in this season.
You know, I ask myself that question a lot. I find moments every day that God shows me of why I'm still doing this. I have a friend who's purchased 50 meals on 2 separate occasions for his fiance's place of employment. It's at Platte Valley Medical Center, and she's a doctor there. She has been going to work at 3 a.m., not coming home until 9 p.m. He gave me just a brief description of what a day in her life looks like, and I can't even imagine what they are going through in the 16, 18-hour shifts and waking up and going back and doing it again. And she talked about how encouraged they were and how their spirits were lifted when he brought food and delivered it to them. I'm getting through this time by focusing on the good that I can find in every day. I have to stop and look for the good sometimes. It's easier than other times, but when I do find the good, I know that it's because Jesus is with me every day, knowing that there's a purpose behind what we're doing every day, and knowing that he's put us here for a reason helps me through every tough situation every day.
Thank you, Lifebridge, for all of your generosity. We've not only supported Anita, but through Cyclops, we've been able to serve those on the front lines. So thank you, and thank you, Anita.
Oh my gosh, thank you for partnering with us and helping us feed our community. I just realized this morning as I was working on my calendar for the week that we've been able to serve over 1,000 people. By the end of this week, we will have surpassed 1,000 meals that we've been able to feed our community, and I'm so grateful for that. So thank you so much.
worthy of every song we could ever sing, worthy of all the praise we could ever bring, worthy of every breath we could ever breathe. We live for you. Jesus, the name above every other name. Jesus, the only one who could ever save. Worthy of every breath we could ever breathe. We live for you. We live for you. Holy, there is no one like you. There is none beside you. Open up my eyes in wonder and show me who you are, and fill me with your heart and lead me in your love to those around me. Jesus, the name above every other name. Jesus, the only one who could ever save. Worthy of every breath we could ever breathe. We live for you. Oh, we live for you. And holy, there is no one like you. There is none beside you. Open up my eyes in wonder and show me who you are, and fill me with your heart and lead me in your love to those around me. Lead me in your love, lead me to your love, Lord, and I will build my life upon your love. It is a firm foundation, and I will put my trust in you alone, and I will not be shaken. And holy, there is no one like you. There is none beside you. Open up my eyes in wonder and show me who you are, and fill me with your heart and lead me in your love to those around me. And I will build my life upon your love. It is a firm foundation, and I will put my trust in you alone, and I will not be shaken. 'Tis so sweet to trust in Jesus, just to take him at his word, just to rest upon his promise, just to know thus saith the Lord. Jesus, Jesus, how I trust him, how I prove him more and more. Jesus, Jesus, precious Jesus, oh, for grace to trust Him more. And God is faithful. Faithful when we build our lives on Him. Faithful when we simply trust His promises. These hymns of ascent are reminding us that in Him we have hope. When we take communion in a moment, it will remind us that we have grace and forgiveness in Him. And when we worship, well, that reminds us that we have perspective. When we serve, when we give, reminds us that we have this confidence in His provision, in His call. His simple invitation is the same to each one of us, just to trust Him more. Can you trust Him more today? Jesus, Jesus, precious Jesus, oh, for grace to trust Him more.
Remember the time when? Whenever someone says that, it's usually followed up with a smile or a great memory, isn't it? Or in my case, whenever my wife says it, she's usually bringing up something from the past, something dumb that I did just so she can laugh about it again. But whenever we say remember when, that usually sparks a specific memory that's really good. Like, we remember the big days and the big seasons in our lives, but it's the details that make the difference. I remember my wedding day. Of course I do. That was one of the best days of my life. But what really puts a smile on my face is when I think back and I think about those double doors opening up and getting to see Kelly for the very first time that day. You know, the way that she looked and the way that she looked at me, that image is burned into my mind. Or one of my best friends, who was one of my groomsmen, he did a swan dive into the pool at our reception. The pool was off limits. In his tux, just because we dared him and said, nah, you wouldn't do that. Or what about the birth of my 3 kids? I mean, there's so much that happened in those 3 days to smile about. Like my youngest, when he was born, we were actually at the Indiana State Fair when my wife's water broke. I mean, like, how redneck is that? I mean, what makes it even better, you're walking around the State Fair in August. We were actually next to the mechanical bull when it happened. I mean, this is just awesome. And I'm gonna get in so much trouble for telling you that. Or what about the process of God bringing my family and I to Lifebridge? There's so much to look back on in that. But the thing that I'll probably say that remember when the most about was a particular conversation that happened on the way to school. It was the morning after my second interview with the church, and I was taking my oldest 2 kids to school. And at that point, the kids didn't know anything about Lifebridge. We didn't tell them we were even interviewing. And from the back seat, my daughter spoke up. She was 6 years old at the time, and she said, hey, Daddy? And I said, yes, sweet girl. And she said, I had a dream last night that I want to tell you about. And I said, well, I want to hear about it. And she said, I had a dream last night that Jesus told me to go to Colorado and tell people about Him. Where's Colorado, Daddy? I mean, that story puts a smile on my face every time I think about it. We remember the big days and the big seasons, but it's those specific moments that really make us smile. Those moments when you saw your bride for the first time, or your best friend does a swan dive into the pool, or your wife's water breaks at the state fair next to the mechanical bull, or a conversation with your 6-year-old daughter that changes the course of your life. Those are the things that we really remember, and they bring us joy. Well, that was then. What about right now? Like, joy seems to be at a premium right now. I mean, we are all hungry for it. Like, we're hungry for joy. We're hungry for something to be joyful about. We're hungry for something to make us feel better, something that would take our minds off the current circumstances. And it just seems like joy is hard to get a hold of right now. You understand what I'm talking about. Last week we talked about suffering, and we talked about not missing the opportunity that suffering actually gives us. Well, there's a flip side to that coin, that suffering coin. We also don't want to miss the opportunity that crisis gives us to grab hold of joy, because joy doesn't disappear in crisis. It doesn't. In fact, it can become even more real. So we need to understand first what joy isn't. Joy is not an escape. It's not something that we can use to get away or to shield us from the effects and the feelings of reality. It's not something that we can possess to escape. If you just want to escape, then you're never going to have true joy. I think this is one of the biggest problems that we're unwilling to face or even acknowledge. And when I say we, I mean all of us, our culture. Some of us are more guilty of this than others. Me personally, I would fall into the guilty category of this. The problem that we're not willing to acknowledge or face is that we crave escapism. Like, we're just hungry for it. We're just tired of the responsibilities that we just have to deal with every single day. I just don't want to deal with tough stuff right now anymore. I'm just tired of feeling depressed or sad or discouraged. I just don't want to feel, or I just want to forget for a little while. So let me try to escape. I think this is one of the reasons why the entertainment industry in the United States is so massive. Let me just buy some fun. Let me pay for a vacation. Let me buy a ticket to a game or a concert or a show. All of those things, by the way, I am all in on. But we need to understand that there is a difference. There's a big difference between rest and fun and trying to escape. You need to understand that buying those thrills, that's not real joy. You can escape for a few hours, you can escape for a few weeks, but that's not going to give you the joy that we all crave. So then we take it to the next level. If I can't get the joy that I'm looking for by escaping from things in my life, well, then let me try to eliminate things in my life. Let me try to eliminate the things that hurt me in my life, because that's where joy has to live, right? In the absence of pain. That's where I'll find joy. So let me go ahead and numb the things that cause me pain. And we use a plethora of things to numb pain. Usually we think that just might be stuff like drugs or alcohol or porn, but you can numb yourself with anything. That could be food, that could be entertainment. So let me just numb myself of the pain, or maybe it's insecurity. Maybe that's my problem. So let me just get rid of all of the risk in my life. I'm just going to live a risk-free life. Or maybe the thing that I keep running into is disappointment. So I'm just going to depersonalize my relationships so that people can't disappoint me anymore. I'm going to eliminate any relationship in my life that has any kind of depth to it, any kind of authenticity, any kind of realness to it. I'm just going to keep all of my relationships surface level. I'll make them all depersonal. I'm using those examples because personally, I've done all of that. I've tried to escape. I've tried to eliminate things in my life. And you can make this logical argument, or what seems like a logical argument, that if I can just escape from the things that bring me down and eliminate the things that cause me pain, well, then that's where I'll find joy. Like you can see the logic, or at least try to follow that logic. And that's an argument that our world makes over and over and over again. But here's the truth. All that is a formula for a joyless life. Numbing the pain, avoiding risk, depersonalizing your relationships. Man, just trying to escape. That's a formula for a joyless life. There's something so much better. Joy is not the absence of pain or struggle. It's not. So let's just get that idea out of our head. In fact, some of the greatest joy can come from the greatest pain. I mean, some of the greatest moments of joy in my life, in my wife's life, happened at a hospital, but we had to go through hours of struggle and pain to get there, to get to that joy. And when I say we, I mean Kelly. I did what my job was, and I did this excellent, was to provide a steady supply of ice chips so that they were readily available to Kelly. And by the way, that's a very underrated job. She's the one that did the real work, though. She's the one that struggled in labor. She's the one that went through hours of pain. But all of that pain and all of that struggle was immediately eclipsed by joy when she got to hold our sons and our daughter for the very first time. The pain didn't go away right away, as every mom can attest to, but the joy was greater. And this is true. This is true in so many areas of our lives. I just use childbirth as an example because it's a really easy illustration. But for some reason, we've made this hard. Being joyful or having joy, we've made it hard. And I don't know if that's because we give up too early. I don't know if that's because we look for it in the wrong places. Maybe because of our own experiences or the things that we see in the world, that we become cynical and believe that joy is just a myth, that it's fleeting. I don't know what the reason why. Maybe it's a little bit of all of that. But what Jesus would say, and what the entire Bible teaches, is that joy being a myth and that it's hard for us to get our hands on, that's unequivocally false. Joy is not some secret that we've got to unlock. It's not some formula either. Man, joy is simply it's a characteristic of the Christian life. Galatians says that it actually lists joy as the second fruit or attribute that comes out of your life if you're following Jesus. Jesus himself said that I came to give life and life to the full, and he's talking to you. He said, I came to give you life to the full. He said, I came to give you life with purpose, life with passion, life with energy, life with delight. And all of those things are wrapped up in joy. Jesus gives joy. That's as simple and as direct as I can say it. And it's true. So how does that play out practically? Psalm 126 is one of the most joyful songs in the entire Bible. This is a song that the Israelites would have sang on their way to Jerusalem to celebrate one of the 3 major Jewish festivals, and all of that stuff is laid out in the Old Testament. Listen to the lyrics of this song. It starts off like this. It says, when the Lord brought back his exiles to Jerusalem. And we need to stop there because exile, that doesn't sound like joy to me. Here's the context that this song is talking about. When Babylon was the world superpower, they came and surrounded Jerusalem and laid siege to the city for a long time. And the longer the Babylonian army, which was led by King Nebuchadnezzar, maybe you've heard of him, the longer Nebuchadnezzar and his army surrounded the city, the worse it got for the Israelites that were trapped inside. It got so bad that the things that happened inside to the people, I'm not even going to say right now, just in case you've got little kids watching with you. Let's just say that it went to a rating of TVMA really, really quickly. Well, eventually Jerusalem fell, the city was conquered, most of the people were killed, but the people that survived were taken as captive. They went into exile. First thing they had to do was they had to march 600 miles across the desert to their new home in Babylon where they would become slaves. So throughout captivity, they would have seen their family member and their friends die. They would have been humiliated on a daily basis. They would have had their culture stripped from them. The Babylonians were notorious for stripping culture and customs away from the people that they conquered and then indoctrinating them with everything that is Babylon. Basically, they got really, really good at brainwashing people. That's what was happening. And that lasted for 70 years. 70 years in exile. Some people died in exile. Some people were born into it. 70 years of that happening. That's what this song, the first verse of this song is talking about. That hopelessness of being in exile. But then God changed all of that. God brought the exiles back. It says, the song goes like this. When the Lord brought back his exiles to Jerusalem, it was like a dream. We were filled with laughter. We sang for joy. And the other nations, they said, what amazing things the Lord has done for them. Yes, the Lord has done amazing things for us. What joy. Restore our fortunes, O Lord, as streams renew the desert. Those who plant in tears will harvest with shouts of joy. They weep as they go to plant their seed, but they will sing as they return with the harvest. This song starts off with a remember the time when. Like, remember the time when God brought us out of captivity. I mean, that blew my mind. That was like a dream. I never thought that could ever happen. Like, remember how much we laughed on the way back to Jerusalem. Remember all the singing. Remember all of the joy. This song is talking about what God has done for his people, and then it shifts to what hasn't happened yet but will. This song is all about what God has done and what God will do, and it all points to joy. So here's the truth that you and I can pull out of this song right now for us today. Joy comes from appreciation and anticipation. And that's especially relevant for us right now. Joy comes from appreciation of what has happened in the past and anticipating what will happen in the future. Joy is not some passive feeling or emotion that we get once we experience something that we like. It's so much more than that. It's active. It's this active appreciation for what God has already done. It comes from those remember the time when reflections. Like, remember the time when God did this. Yeah, I remember that. That was amazing. Remember the time when God used your 6-year-old daughter to tell you what He was calling you to do. Yeah, I remember that. Remember the time when God did that thing. Man, joy comes from appreciating what God has already done for you. Like, start making a list of those things. When God blessed you in this way, or when God was providing for you, or when He intervened for you, or when He was gracious to you, or when He was generous to you. Remember the things that He has done. Think of things that you have to be grateful for. And I know that might seem hard right now, but if you're watching this, you have at least one thing to be grateful for. You've got air in your lungs. And that's not true for a lot of people right now. And start thanking God for what He has done. Do that today. Joy will come from that. You appreciate the past. Joy comes from that. And then start looking to the future. Like, you and I don't know what's going to happen in the future. We don't even know what's going to happen tomorrow. But we can know what God promises today. We can also know what God promises tomorrow. God promises that He won't abandon you. God promises to provide for you. He promises that He will work in all things, including coronavirus. He'll work in all things for the good of those who love Him. God promises you that He'll be with you, that when you go through rough water, you're not going to drown. That when you go through fire, you're not going to get burned. He promises you that when you plant in tears, meaning that when you're following Jesus and you're broken about something, or you're sad, or you're suffering, or you're miserable, when you're following Jesus, you're planting in those tears, that one day you're going to take a massive harvest that's just full of joy. I mean, those are just a handful of the promises that God makes to the people that love Him. Just the tip of the iceberg. Something that's been really helpful for me is that whenever I come across one of the promises of God in my Bible, I circle it, and then I pray through it. In fact, I can see circles on this page right here. Circle the promises of God and then pray through them. Thank God today for what He's going to do tomorrow. Joy comes from that. Thanking God for what He has done, that's gratitude. Thanking God for what He will do, that's faith. Joy comes from gratitude and faith. Joy comes from appreciation and anticipation. Your joy is not attached to your circumstances. It's not. Joy is only dependent on who God is, what He's done, and what He will do. And the great news is, those three things, they're rock solid. So not only remember the time when, not only should that put a smile on our face, but also imagine the time when. That should do the same thing for us. We look forward and we look back for joy. But maybe we approach the thing the wrong way. Maybe we just think that joy is part of being fortunate. That the only reason I'm joyful is I'm blessed and I've just been fortunate. It's really out of my control. Or maybe we view joy as something that we get as a reward. Because I've done all these good things, because I've checked all the boxes, whatever those boxes are, then I should be getting joy. I'm entitled to it. But that's not how it works. The only thing joy is a consequence of is discipleship. Discipleship is simply taking your next step with Jesus. And everybody has a next step. You have a next step. I have a next step. What's my next step that I can take today in obedience to Jesus? Because that's what Jesus said. He said, go and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit, teaching them to obey all that I've commanded you. Discipleship is simply taking that next step of obedience with Jesus. So maybe your next step is to love somebody better. Jesus gave us this commandment. He said, I come to you with a new commandment to love one another. Well, I've got this person in my life over here that I've just not loved very well. So maybe that's my next step is to love them well. Maybe your next step is accepting Jesus as your Lord and Savior. Maybe your next step is getting baptized. Maybe your next step is confessing some sin to God and asking for forgiveness. Maybe your next step is daily Bible reading. Maybe your next step is having a certain conversation with a certain friend. Maybe your next step is generosity. Maybe your next step is serving. Maybe your next step is daily prayer that's not just before meals. Everybody's got a next step. And joy Joy is the consequence of your next step. It's a consequence. It's a consequence of discipleship. Joy is a characteristic that you will see on anybody's journey of discipleship. It just is. And I know there's so many cheap imitations of joy that we go after in our world. Stuff that promises us to give us the joy that we crave and that we're looking for, but it either comes up short or runs out at best, or at worst, it harms you. It enslaves you even more to getting that thing that you're using, whatever that thing is that you're using to try to escape with. But the only true joy is found in Jesus. The more lockstep you are with Jesus, the more joyful you'll be, despite your circumstances. Some of the most joyful people that I've met in my life and around the world have horrible circumstances. Some of the most joyful people in the Bible had horrific circumstances, but they were lockstep with Jesus. Your joy is not attached to your circumstances. It's only a consequence of following Jesus. That's it. So let me end with this. We're all very aware right now of things that might be contagious, and rightfully so, right? The virus is contagious, so we're wearing masks in public. We're social distancing. I feel like I've lost multiple layers of skin on my hands from hand sanitizer. I'm rubbing the layers of skin away. We're all really aware of things that might be contagious because we don't want to catch something, and we don't want somebody else to catch something from us. But remember this also. Joy is contagious too. The joy that's a consequence of you following Jesus, other people will notice that. They'll see that you have joy, and they'll see that you have it despite the circumstances that we're all in right now. And when they see that, they'll wonder, what's that all about? And they'll be drawn to you. They'll be drawn to you, and what an opportunity you have right then and there to share where that joy comes from. What a huge opportunity you've got to serve them, to bless them, to be generous. We want our joy to be contagious. We want other people to catch it. So let me ask you one question. Are you using your joy to bless other people? Are you using your joy to serve other people? Are you using your joy to be generous? And that could look like 1,000 different things, but if you're looking for ways to bless and serve and be generous with other people and to other people, those opportunities will present themselves. Appreciate what God has done in the past and anticipate what God will do in the future. That will bring you joy, along with being generous and blessing and serving other people. That will bring you joy. So I want to give you some space right now to reflect on anything that you've heard today. We've got some questions that are going to come up on the screen. And I also want to give you a chance to take communion. I mean, communion should be one of the most joyful things that we get to do. It's a time where we get to reflect on what Jesus did for us on the cross and when he walked out of the grave. And because of that, ultimately, we have so much to be joyful about, because one day we get to spend eternity with him in paradise where there is no more sickness. Revelation 21 promises that. So I want to give you a chance to take some communion. If you've got some crackers or bread or some juice in your house, do that now with your family, with your friends, with your spouse. Take some time to do that. And also, if you want to continue to worship by giving, our generosity is a way that we express our joy back to God by giving, and you can do that right now. You can do that through PushPay or through our website. So I want to encourage you, take some time to reflect on the questions. Take some time to take communion, and take some time to worship by being generous and giving back to God. It's great seeing you guys this weekend. I hope you have a fantastic week. I love you, and I'll see you next Sunday.